All right, today we are diving into a really fascinating new study that uncovers this hidden link between how we sleep and how our hearts get old. It turns out the way you breathe at night could literally be hitting the fast forward button on your cardiovascular system. Let's get into it. So, let's just start with the big question, right? Could your sleep actually be making your heart older? It's a pretty wild thought, but it is the absolute core of the research we're looking at today. And just to be clear, this isn't about how many hours you sleep, but all about the quality of your breathing while you're asleep. And the main culprit we're talking about here is obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA for short. You've probably heard of it. It's a super common disorder where your breathing just stops and starts over and over all night long. And every single time that happens, your blood oxygen levels drop, which, as you can imagine, creates this incredibly stressful cycle for your entire body. And look, this isn't some new age theory. Scientists have known for a while now that this is serious stuff. This statement from the American Heart Association puts it perfectly. OSA is a potent and independent risk factor. That means it's a big deal all on its own, totally separate from other things like your diet or how much you exercise. So, with that in mind, the researchers behind this study wanted to dig way deeper. They came up with this pretty incredible experiment to figure out, what are the long-term cumulative effects? What happens when this goes on for an entire lifetime? And that was it. That was the big question they set out to answer. What does decades of this nightly oxygen roller coaster actually do to your heart and blood vessels? To figure that out, they needed a way to watch this whole process unfold over a lifetime. And that's where lab mice come into the picture. Okay, so they set up two groups. You had group one, the control group. They just breathed normal air 24/7. They were basically our baseline for what normal aging should look like. Then you had group two. This group was exposed to something called intermittent hypoxia, these short, repeated dips in oxygen that were designed to perfectly simulate what a person with severe sleep apnea goes through every single night. And listen to this. This was not a short-term study. They ran this experiment for 22 straight months, which for a mouse is a huge chunk of their life. For 12 hours a day, every single day, the second group lived through these simulated apnea cycles. This was truly modeling the lifelong burden of having untreated OSA. So, after nearly 2 years of this, what did they find? Well, the results were, frankly, pretty alarming. They painted a crystal clear picture of just how much damage was being done. Let's just start with one number, probably the most shocking number from the whole study, 38.9%. What is that? Well, that was the mortality rate in the sleep apnea group. Just look at this graph. The black line way up top, that's the control group. 100% of them made it through the 22 months. But the red line, the sleep apnea group, it just plummets. Nearly 40% of them didn't survive. The cumulative stress was, well, deadly. And what about the mice that did survive? Well, their health markers told a very similar, very grim story. I mean, check out this table. Compared to the normal aging mice, the ones with simulated sleep apnea had way higher blood pressure, their hearts were pumping weaker, their arteries were severely stiffened, and even their resting heart rate was jacked way up. It was a clean sweep, and not in a good way. Let's zero in on blood pressure for a second. The difference is just stark. The sleep apnea mice were sitting at an average of 111, while the control group was at a healthy 94. That kind of sustained high pressure puts a relentless strain on the entire system, day in and day out. And the damage didn't stop at the heart. It hit the blood vessels too. Artery stiffness is a huge predictor of things like heart attacks and strokes, and it was significantly higher in the apnea group. Their arteries were literally behaving like the arteries of much, much older mice. So when you start to put all these pieces together, the higher death rate, the sky-high blood pressure, the stiff arteries, a really powerful conclusion starts to take shape. And here's the main takeaway from the whole study. Sleep apnea doesn't just add another risk factor to the pile. It's much more insidious than that. It actually acts as an aging accelerator. The constant nightly stress from those oxygen drops is forcing the heart and blood vessels to get older, faster. And this accelerated aging is happening on so many different fronts at once. It's causing chronic high blood pressure, it's physically weakening the heart muscle so it can't pump as efficiently, it's stiffening those major arteries, as we saw, and it's even messing with the heart's electrical system, which can lead to dangerous arrhythmias. But there's one more effect that is particularly worrying. It's called the coronary flow velocity reserve. The easiest way to think about this is like your heart's emergency backup generator, right? When you exercise or you're under stress, your heart needs a surge of oxygen-rich blood, and this reserve is what kicks in to deliver it. What the study found is that this critical safety net was just worn out and drastically reduced in the sleep apnea group. It left them incredibly vulnerable.
Okay, so this is all incredibly compelling stuff from a mouse study. But let's get to the real point. What does it actually mean for us, for human health?
Well, the researchers are really clear on this point. This experiment is basically a window into the future for a person living with untreated sleep apnea. It's modeling the slow, silent, cumulative damage that builds up for decades, often without anyone knowing, until suddenly there's a major heart attack or stroke. But here's the good news. Here's the hopeful part. The authors really stress that this damage isn't a foregone conclusion. In fact, their findings just hammer home how absolutely crucial it is to catch and treat sleep apnea early. If you do that, you could potentially slow down or maybe even stop this whole accelerated aging process in its tracks. So what can you actually do? Well, it all starts with recognizing the symptoms. We're talking about loud, persistent snoring, waking up gasping for air, or just feeling wiped out all day long, no matter how long you were in bed. If any of that sounds familiar, the next step is simple. Talk to your doctor. And the best news of all is that there are fantastic, effective treatments out there, like CPAP therapy, that have been shown to actually reverse a lot of these negative effects. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. For so long, we've just dismissed snoring as, an annoying noise. But this research really forces us to ask a much bigger question. If that snoring is a sign that your breathing is being interrupted, it might not be just noise at all. It might be a warning sign. It might be your body trying to tell you something incredibly important about the health of your heart.